الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد سيد الأولين والآخرين وحبيب رب العالمين. We ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to grant us the sincere intentions. In yesterday's session, we reached speaking about the coming of Al-Dajjal. Al-Dajjal, to summarize his story, he is a human being from Bani Israel. One of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, whose name was Tamim ibn Aus ad-Dari radiyallahu anhu, saw Al-Dajjal and confirmed what the Prophet ﷺ had informed the companions about. He'd already told them about Al-Dajjal, and that he is on an island, and that he is shackled and trapped, and he is as large as a palm tree, and so on. Then Tamim ibn Aus ad-Dari confirmed that. And so the Prophet ﷺ was pleased. So he rose to the mimbar, the pulpit, and he said, what means that here is Tamim ibn Aus ad-Dari confirming what I mentioned to you. For indeed he has seen Al-Dajjal. Al-Bukhari narrated that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, ما من نبي إلا وقد أنذر قومه. That there hasn't been a prophet except that he has warned his people against Al-Dajjal. So Al-Dajjal is a human being. He is from Bani Israel. So from the lineage of Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam. And he will come, and his appearance is the first major sign among the signs of the Day of Judgment. The Prophet ﷺ said that when the first sign appears, then the rest will follow in quick succession. There are many details about the Dajjal that the scholars mention. I'll summarize. One of the most, let's say, interesting physical features of the Dajjal, and that which is most known, is to do with his eye or his eyes. Some scholars, because of the hadiths and the way they were worded, some scholars, they said that one of his eyes is طافية with a ya, طافية, and some said that one of his eyes is طافئة. The difference between the two is that طافئة means that one of his eyes is extinguished, meaning there is no light in it, meaning he cannot see through it. And the other meaning, طافية, or the other word طافية, it means that his eye is protruding, sticking out. In actual fact, both of the eyes of Al-Dajjal have defects in them. So in some narrations, it is the right eye that is extinguished, that he's blind in or is protruding. And in some narrations, it's the left eye. So there is a difference in opinion. All the same, that's one eye. Then the other eye also, the scholars mention, it contains a defect. The Prophet ﷺ said about Al-Dajjal that he is a'war. he is a'war, meaning that both his eyes, or that he has a defect in his eye. One of his eyes, it's considered to be literally mamsuh, wiped. And the scholars, they differed about the meaning of that and what it means. Some said it resembles a glass eye. Some said other things. The Prophet ﷺ said, Inna rabbakum laysa bi'a'war. He said that Al-Dajjal, because he will claim godhood, he will say, I am Allah. There are other narrations in which it is mentioned that Al-Dajjal, first when he appears, he will show himself off as a pious person abiding by the religious law. Then after a while he will claim prophethood, and then finally he will claim that he is God. And then as a test for the people, Allah Ta'ala will facilitate for him to do extraordinary matters. So the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wassalam, Inna rabbakum laysa bi'a'war. This literally means that your Lord, meaning Allah Ta'ala is not attributed with bodily attributes such as eyes, number one. And secondly, this person that is claiming to be God, his eye, it is defected. So around this theme of being defected, of being imperfect, the Prophet ﷺ taught us yet again that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is attributed with all proper perfection. For someone to say that Allah has eyes, this is attributing weakness to Allah, because it's attributing shape and size to Allah. Allah sees without an instrument, without an eye, just like Allah hears without an instrument, without an ear. Attributing a defect to Allah is insulting Allah. So the scholars said that anybody who attributes a non-befitting attribute to Allah is judged as a kafir for having insulted Allah. It's very obvious that the Dajjal is not Allah, because Al-Dajjal will be on the earth, and Allah Ta'ala is without place, as he has always been. Al-Dajjal has a shape and a size. Al-Dajjal, he began to exist and he will die. These are not attributes of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala is free of location and being bound by time. So the Prophet ﷺ, I repeat, when he said, Inna rabbakum laysa bi'a'war, that Allah is not attributed with having a defective eye, or a defected eye. The wider meaning of this is that Allah Ta'ala is not attributed with this attribute of the creation. So you'll see now though why many people, when Al-Dajjal comes, many people will be confused. One of the reasons is that because there is a lack of religious knowledge tied in with some other matters, these people will become confused. Also Al-Dajjal, it will be written on his forehead, Kaf, Fa, Ra. And in some narrations, Kaf, Alif, Fa, Ra, which spells out kafir. Allah will grant every Muslim, whether this Muslim was able to read or not in normal circumstances, Allah will grant all of them the ability to identify Al-Dajjal by being able to read kafir on his forehead. He appears after the conquering of Al-Qustantiniyah. And his appearance, it occurs in Asbahan, in Iran. When Al-Dajjal comes, let's recap briefly what will have happened 3 years before his coming. The rain will withhold a third of the sky will withhold a third of its water. And likewise, a third of the land will withhold a third of its crops. So there will be a shortage of food and water. Then in the second year, the sky will withhold 2/3 of its water, and the ground, the earth, the land, it will withhold 2/3 of its crops. So food will be scarce, and likewise water. Then in the final year, the last year, that third year, the sky will withhold all of its rain, and the earth will not allow for any crops to grow. So there will be no wheat or barley or potatoes or anything that comes from the ground. So there will be a drought. This will be the condition. And there will be famine. And animals will die. So people will be in a dire state. A state of desperation. So when Al-Dajjal comes and he says to the people, I am God, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, as a test for the people, will make appear extraordinary matters that it would appear to many people that support Al-Dajjal's claim to godhood. So there are a number of matters. One of them is that the Prophet ﷺ described that Al-Dajjal, he would have with him a mountain of fruits and a mountain of bread, meaning a lot of bread. At this time when people are finding it difficult to feed mouths. You consider yourself when it's Ramadan and you're getting close to the time of the iftar, people become a little edgy. Some people, they sit in the corner of the room and they request, nobody talk to me until after we've eaten. Or some people, they feel annoyed. This is when they're hungry. Likewise, when a person is thirsty, when a person is in a situation when they are, you could say, desperate for something, their state is like this. Like if it's really, really cold outside, as soon as a person gets in, they'll say, shut the door, quickly, close the door, turn the heater on or turn the heater up, or like this, in this type of situation. So now, you add to that the people haven't had food for a long time. They're surviving though. This person comes with food and performs extraordinary matters on top of bringing food. So already, some people are sold. Some people are like, just, yes, whatever you say, just give us some food. On top of that now, there are extraordinary matters that will occur at this person's hands. The Prophet ﷺ said that he would have with him a river and he would have with him fire. He would have fresh water with him. And there are details about that. In some narrations, مَعَهُ جِبَالُ خُبْزٍ وَلَحْمٍ وَنَهْرٌ مِّن مَّاءٍ. He will have with him a mountain of bread, a mountain of meat at a time at which there are no animals. They will have died. And he will have water with him. So water and food at this time of desperation. He would stay on the earth for just over a year. He would go to the people and call towards himself. Getting people to commit kufr and getting people to believe in his call to godhood. Wal-'iyadhu billah. On 3 occasions, he will insert his hand into the sea. He puts his hand into the sea, and extraordinarily his arm extends. And he brings out fish from the depths of the sea. His arm, his hand, it reaches all the way to the bottom. And he brings out fish for the people, further persuading and enticing them. The people who follow him most of them will be the ignorant people. So many people, because of a lack of religious knowledge, will follow him. In which area will their lack of religious knowledge be? Their lack of religious knowledge will be about the attributes of Allah Ta'ala. Al-Dajjal claims to be God. Those that know the attributes of Allah would say, of course, it's impossible that Al-Dajjal is God, because Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is not limited. As for Al-Dajjal, he has a shape, he has a size, he has a skin color, he is in a place, he is bound by time, and so on and so forth. So it's impossible that he would be God. Likewise, Al-Dajjal, in addition to all those attributes of the creation, Al-Dajjal has a defected eye. And likewise, these other attributes of the creation. So the believer, the Muslim, he would say that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is unimaginable. Allah cannot be imagined in the mind. Allah Ta'ala is not limited, as the Jews claim that Allah is this thing in the sky. Allah is not limited. Allah has always existed even when the sky didn't exist. Allah has always existed even when the Arsh didn't exist. Allah existed. Allah always existed. Even when there were no places, Allah existed, i.e. without place. So for a believer, it's very, very obvious. Even if a person is extraordinarily bringing fish out from the sea and bread at a time at which no wheat can be harvested, and doing all of these extraordinary things, the believer says, this is not Allah. Of course, this is a man. This is where the ignorance of a lot of people will be. And on top of that, they are in a state of desperation. In some narrations, it's mentioned that many women will follow Al-Dajjal. Many women. Such that the men, they would, out of fear, some Muslim men, out of fear of their wives, daughters, mothers, sisters, and aunts, out of fear that they would follow the Dajjal, they would keep them at home and they would tie them up. The Prophet ﷺ, in one narration, he mentioned that this is something that he feared for his nation, that Al-Dajjal would come. At the time of Al-Dajjal, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala would make it be that all of the shayateen, all of the devils and demons in the east and in the west, they would be at the Dajjal's behest, they would be at his service, to serve him. Such that they would say, Ista'in bina ala man shi'ta. Use us, utilize us for whomever you want, in whatever way you want. So he would tell them, go and tell people that I am their Lord. And tell them, he said, that I have brought with me paradise and hell. So the devils go off, such that every person will be tested and afflicted. 100 shayateen would go to one man, and they would take the form of this person's mother or father, or siblings, or friends. And they would say, Ya Fulan, oh such and such, do you not know me? Let me tell you about something. That our Lord has appeared. The Muslims would say, but we've been told that this is the enemy of Allah. This is Al-Dajjal. That Al-Dajjal has appeared. So we assume that this is him that you are calling us towards. In the narrations it says, the devil say to him, مَهْلًا لَا تَقُلْ هَذَا فَإِنَّهُ رَبُّكُمْ يُرِيدُ الْقَضَاءَ فِيكُمْ هَذِهِ جَنَّتُهُ قَدْ جَاءَ بِهَا وَنَارُهُ وَمَعَهُ الْأَنْهَارُ وَالطَّعَامُ. That don't say that. Indeed, this is our Lord. He has come to judge between us. And here, this is the paradise that he has brought with him. And this is the fire that he brings with him. And likewise, he has brought with him food and water. Some people will fall for that, and some people will not. At this time, when there is no food, the believers, al-mu'minun, Allah Ta'ala will create for them to be satisfied without food by saying Subhanallah, by saying at-tasbih, Subhanallah, and other words like this to praise Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, saying Subhanallah and Allahu Akbar. Some people, they don't say these words correctly. The Prophet ﷺ was sent, and he was not ordered to tell people that it is a personal obligation. He was not ordered to tell people that it is a personal obligation for everyone to learn how to converse in the Arabic language. He was not sent to convey that. Rather, what is an obligation is for certain parts of the Arabic language that pertain to the prayer, for example, and how to say the names of Allah Ta'ala if one wanted to utter them in the Arabic language. This now, here a person is obligated then to learn those parts of the Arabic language for the prayer. And if they want to say the name of Allah in the Arabic language or the names of Allah, then they must learn it properly. Here, it's not enough for a person to say, but my intention. This is not enough. Because even the kuffar, they have an intention. They don't have an intention to be tortured in hellfire. When they worship what they call the Son of God, or when some of them worship idols, they don't have an intention that they, by doing that, will enter hell. So the intention is not enough. And then secondly, why was the Prophet sent, alayhi salatu wassalam? If anybody could just say whatever they wanted anyway, or if a person could just be lazy and not learn. In that case, if a person could just do what they want and not learn, and of course, being ignorant then would be easy. Why would people go to learn the religious knowledge? Why would the religious knowledge even be honorable? Why would it deserve for a person to acquire it? So some people, they don't say Subhanallah, they say Subhanallah. They might not even say Allah correctly. A person who doesn't say the name of Allah correctly, this person is sinful. Likewise, sometimes you hear a lot of people, even amongst the Arabs, you hear them saying things like saying Allahu Akbar. This statement is not a good statement to say. To say Allahu Akbar. This has a wrong meaning. But some people, they don't take care of this issue. When they get excited or they shout or they scream, they might say the statement like that. They say Allahu Akbar, and it gives a wrong meaning. Wal-'ayadhu billah. A kufr meaning. If they understood it, then they would be kuffar. But people in general, they don't understand what it means. It would mean Allah is a drum. Someone said Allahu Akbar, this is kufr. So a person needs to learn. So imagine there's a person who's not learned, and they're living at that time and they're saying Subhanallah, Subhanallah. They would be sinning. They would not be satiated. This merit would not be for them. This merit of them becoming full. Or if they're not saying Allahu Akbar properly, they're not saying Allah. They're saying something else, some perverted thing that they think is the name of Allah. Not what the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, but what they made up. And what they perhaps were too lazy to learn to say properly. Or it might be the case that this is how they were raised. Right, fine, this is how they were raised. But a person, after learning what the truth is, they need to strive to say it properly. Some people complain and say, oh, but are we supposed to learn, we're not Arabs. Well, even some of the Arabs are saying it wrong. Are we supposed to learn all the Arabic language? No. But there are specific words that you have to. You have to recite Al-Fatiha. You can't recite Al-Fatiha in Urdu. You can't recite Al-Fatiha in, with English exits, with letters from the English language. It's a language that you have to, those letters you have to learn. And it's very rewardable. That's why a person gets a lot of reward for even reciting one letter of the Quran. So imagine a person at this time, when the people are starving and they are not even saying the name of Allah properly. They won't get that merit. Rather, they'll be committing sins. Some people, they might try to say the name of Allah 100 times. Instead, they commit 100 sins. And their intention doesn't benefit them. So this is a time at which the people will say Subhanallah and Allahu Akbar. And this will يجري لهم مجرى الطعام. This will replace their eating for that time. So Al-Dajjal, he will go to many different places. He will go all across the earth actually. But he will not be able to enter Mecca or Al-Madinah. What's advised for a Muslim to do is to, when he sees Al-Dajjal, is to recite the first or the last ayahs of Surah Al-Kahf. The 10 in the beginning or the 10 at the end of Surah Al-Kahf on the Dajjal when he comes, so that a person is not harmed by him. Some people, right now the Dajjal isn't even here. Some people, when they feel a little bit of stress, it's like their back cracks. They're so weak, that their iman is so weak. Like for example, they're afflicted with a hardship. There's a hardship that occurs, and there are 3 or 4 routes that they could take. Okay? Let's say 3 of them are haram, but they're much easier. And there's one that's the halal route that they could take. What do? They don't even think twice about it. All they want to do is get rid of this thing that they've been afflicted with, so they take the haram route. Just like that. No Dajjal, no famine, no drought, nothing like that. No test of, between iman and kufr. Just something that would happen, let's say like a daily activity. Over that, some people, some Muslims, they have such weak iman that they would bend at something like that. Then what about when Al-Dajjal comes? Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala controls the hearts. How can one guarantee when it comes to something like this? Some people, unfortunately, they might say things like, oh, but that's when the Dajjal comes. When the Dajjal comes, I'm going to be, in top form, as it were. I'm going to be on my game. I'm going to be on the ball. I'm going to be very, very aware, because that's a Dajjal. Yeah, but what guarantees for you that Allah, who controls the hearts, would strengthen your heart that you would be able to resist what Al-Dajjal brings? Especially if you're a person that's not regularly acquiring religious knowledge, topping up your religious knowledge, making sure that your prayers are valid, making sure that your fasting is valid, your wudu is valid. If you can't guarantee these things add up. Imagine instead of actually praying, a person is missing out one of the parts of the prayer that are needed to make the prayer valid. This person is not actually praying because they didn't learn properly. Each time they commit a sin, it's like a black dot on their heart. That eventually, if that adds up, that could close the heart. How would such a person be protected from Al-Dajjal? Many people, they are complacent. Many people, they don't think in the correct way. The Prophet showed us the way, alayhi salatu wasalam. And that was that he heavily encouraged us to learn religious knowledge. Not to spend from the ages of 6 to 9 or 6 to 13 in the madrasa reciting the Quran, and then after that, forget about it. Then after that, as though one has graduated now, and that's it. For the rest of their years until they're 70 or 80, okay, when they buy now their house, or they buy a car, or they get married, or they have children, or there is a death in the family, or they have grandchildren, or all of these things, all of the situations, it's as though they're saying, well, because we read Quran when we were younger, between the ages of 6 and 14, or until our GCSEs, and then, we're Muslims. But are you not continually learning? Did you learn in the madrasa how to conduct a transaction? Did you learn in the madrasa how to, while you're reciting Quran, which is good of course, but did you learn how to shroud the dead? Did you learn about inheritance? What if your mother dies, your father dies? Did you learn about what happens when someone has a miscarriage, if your wife has a miscarriage? Do you know what to do? What is to be done? Does your wife know? And so on and so on and so on. So the Prophet ﷺ continually, he encouraged and urged us to acquire religious knowledge. So Al-Dajjal, he will come. And everybody will be tested by the Dajjal. He will enter every town and city on earth. But when he comes to Mecca or Al-Madinah, he will find that at the entrances of these cities there are angels waiting with unsheathed swords. So Ad-Dajjal will not enter Mecca, and he will not enter Al-Madinah. From afar, outside Al-Madinah, he will stand in a high place. The Prophet ﷺ said that he would show the people that are with him. He would say that this white building that you can see, هذا مسجد أحمد, this is the mosque of Ahmad, meaning Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And this is also, it shows us a miracle of the Prophet ﷺ, or something that he strengthens his truthfulness even further, because in the Prophet's time, when the Prophet was saying all these things, ﷺ, his masjid, it was covered with palm tree leaves. It wasn't white as it is today. So, and it can be seen, its minarets today in Al-Madinah, they can be seen from very, very far away. So Ad-Dajjal, he will come to the edge of Al-Madinah, and he will say to his people, this is the masjid of Ahmad. One of the female companions of the Prophet ﷺ, she said, Ya Rasulallah, فَأَيْنَ الْعَرَبْ يَوْمَئِذٍ? Where will the Arabs be on that day? Where will they be? So the Prophet ﷺ said, هُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ قَلِيلٌ, which means, relatively speaking, they will be small in number. The Arabs, compared to the non-Arabs, the Arab Muslims compared to the non-Arab Muslims are maybe 20 to 25% of the nation of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. The rest, 70 to 75% of the Muslims nowadays are non-Arabs. So in that sense, yes, they are less. He said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, وَجُلُّهُمْ بِبَيْتِ الْمَقْدِسِ. On that day, a lot of the Muslims will be in Jerusalem. وَإِمَامُهُمُ الْمَهْدِيُّ رَجُلٌ صَالِحٌ. And their Khalifa, their leader at that time, when Ad-Dajjal appears, will be a pious man, known as Al-Mahdi. We spoke about him yesterday. When he leaves Mecca, Al-Mahdi, he will settle in Bayt al-Maqdis, in Jerusalem, according to this narration. Prophet Jesus alayhi salam, the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, described him as being someone whose skin color was not like not like Prophet Muhammad's alayhi salatu wassalam. Our Prophet, his skin was white with a red undertone. And this is a sign of great beauty, to have a red undertone. And his complexion was a bright one, an illuminous one. As for the complexion of Prophet Isa alayhi salam, it's described as ahmar. Ahmar meaning red. What that means is that he is slightly darker than Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. So not white, but more of having more of what's described as an olive color. His hair is straight and not curly. Our Prophet's hair alayhi salatu wasalam, it was wavy. So it wasn't absolutely straight and it wasn't curly, but it was between the two. The hair of Prophet Isa alayhi salam, it is straight. When he descends, now Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam said that I saw Jesus alayhi salam in a dream, and he was next to the Kaaba. He said that he is, and he described him. He described that his hair, it was long, going past his ear, okay, as long as going past his ear, but not up to the shoulders. He said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that Jesus alayhi salam, Prophet Isa, would descend at this time when Al-Mahdi is the Khalifa of the Muslims and Al-Dajjal has appeared, and he has with him many different groups of people. Among them are the Jews who support him. The Jews believe that that a Messiah will come, someone who they are waiting for, someone that will support them. We say this is Al-Dajjal that will come. So at this time, the Prophet Jesus alayhi salam, he would descend from the second sky to which he was raised. The place that the Prophet mentioned alayhi salatu wassalam was Damascus in Syria. And he mentioned Sharqiyya Dimashq, the eastern part of Damascus, على المنارة البيضاء. He would descend to the white minaret. This minaret at the time of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam did not exist. There was no wide, white, tall minaret in Syria, in Damascus, in the east of Damascus at that time. But the Prophet ﷺ said that there would be in the future a white minaret or a white structure, a tall white structure, where Prophet Jesus ﷺ would descend from the sky, and he would be wearing two pieces of clothing, like two shrouds that have been dyed in a color that resembles the color of saffron, so leaning towards yellow and orange. And his hands, they would be resting on the wings of two angels. Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, we all believe and we all know that he was taken on the night journey. He was taken on Al-Isra, on the earth, and Al-Mi'raj, he ascended to be shown the great signs of the power of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And he didn't ascend to a place, as some people, wal-'iyadhu billah, claim. He did not ascend to a place where supposedly Allah Ta'ala lives or stays. This is what the kuffar say. So Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, he ascended and then he returned. Likewise, Prophet Idris alayhi salam, Allah revealed, رَفَعْنَاهُ مَكَانًا عَلِيًّا in Surah Maryam, that he ascended to the sky and then he returned and was buried on earth. Prophet Isa alayhi salam, about whom Allah revealed that he did not die and that one day he would return and he would be a sign among the signs of the Day of Judgment, actually the second major sign. He will descend. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam described him expressing his beauty, that he resembles someone, he resembles all the time, someone who it's as though his hair is wet, but it's not. As though his hair is wet, and from his beauty it's as though droplets, like pearls, are dropping from his hair. Like someone who has just, let's say, how is someone who's just come out of the shower, you know how the hair is? Like that, but his hair will not be wet. This is an expression of the great beauty of Prophet Jesus alayhi salam. In our next session, we're going to go into some detail about which part of the day or the night it's been mentioned that he will descend, where he will go, and what he will do. But just quickly to review. Where did we say Prophet Jesus alayhi salam is now? Second sky. And when he descends, what will he be wearing or covered in? 2. And color? Yeah. The color of saffron. And his 2 hands will be resting on the wings of 2 angels, and he will descend onto what? On a white minaret. Where? North or south? East of Damascus. And Damascus is in which continent? Asia. All right. Let's stop here until let's say 6:05. So 5 minutes past 6. We'll start again. Let's say La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim.